to the Adena people because a few so-called native bodies were found in small side burial niches dug into the greater mound. The Miamisburg Mound is now fenced off, but stairs have been built which allow visitors to climb to the top of the ancient tomb to an observation point with the most unique vista of the heartland. Linking the Miamisburg Mound site and the Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio, also presents a unique perspective on the region we call Ohio. Let us not forget, in the Archaic period, Earth did not look as it does now, and much of the land you stand upon was covered in age-old glaciers, and the local streams and creeks and rivers, like those that wind through Middle America, were raging torrents of water, some as deep as the valleys whose bottoms they meander through today. The lands where great cities and farms fill every acre looked more like the imaginary worlds of ice and snow detailed by writers Robert E. Howard, Robert Heinlein, Jack Kirby, and Walt Simonson as they penned tales about Hyperborea, berserkers, Asgardian gods, and hammer-wielding heroes. As every day goes by in this 21st century, the many theories of the past are erased by science, and a new understanding of reality takes hold. At the same time, we have been witness to a great unraveling of the bibliocentric narrative and a dismissal of Darwinian theory. I believe a closer examination of European myths and accounts of history are more likely to be at the roots of some of the theories concocted by the 19th and 20th century academia. I believe the Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio, is the site where Thor killed the Midgard serpent. I believe that the Miamisburg Mound is Thor's tomb. You're all CSI nerds, right? You've never read The Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew as a kid, and you think that Robert Downey Jr. is Sherlock Holmes, so you're entertained by the televised puke programming. I know. It's sad. But tell me this, CSI guy. You have a giant, 1,300-foot serpent effigy built on the radioactive impact crater where no meteor has ever been found, but a very magical hammer is rumored to have struck a killing blow on, oddly enough, a giant serpent. And, miles away, on the highest ridge, you have an ancient burial mound where the body of a giant, 15-foot-tall, red-bearded warrior sits in repose wearing metal armor never forged by any American Indian hand, in the very vicinity where it is rumored a giant, hammer-wielding, red-haired warrior was killed by a serpent. So I ask you, CSI guy or gal, what do those clues tell you? Should we continue to ignore the strange yet observable and researchable data and attribute both of these sites to peoples with no traceable links to either snake cults or serpent worship simply because they moved in and out of the region? Should we continue to ignore the Lenni Lenape's assertion that the mighty Aligans built the serpent effigy more than 5,000 years ago, the same way we do their nationwide tales of giants who ruled North America before their arrival from Asia? No. It is time to see what is in front of our own eyes. Understand the ancient tales of the Norse Vikings and those of the American Indian tribesmen, like the so-called myths retold in Ireland and England and Norway and Germany and Poland and Russia, are just localized segments of the same world-encompassing historic narrative that our Yahweh society is forced to ignore in favor of the Mosaic biblical account. Eve's serpent is far younger than the hungry snake who consumed Gilgamesh's hope for immortality. Eve's serpent is younger still than those adoring the Aryan Vedic deities when Krishna crushed his serpentine foe 8 millennia ago. Eve's serpent is younger than the golden serpent of Atlantis, the heraldic symbol of all royal bloodlines. Eve's serpent, Yahweh's most hated nemesis, was but a tiny worm compared to the serpent gods of the world before Noah's flood. The serpent gods of black and gold and red and white, and those as blue as the sky, predate and surround Yahweh's tabernacle on earth. The Hebrew God's own might was demonstrated as his chosen warrior Moses would cast his staff into a serpent more powerful than those conjured by rival wizards, and as Yahweh's own designed Nakash, his bronze serpent, would shield his faithful from the viper-like attacks of heavenly lightning, which plagued the wandering tribes of Israel. The modern world has forgotten the snakes of old, the serpents the infant Hercules killed in his crib, the serpent upon which Vishnu first performed the art of yoga, the rainbow serpents who built the world of the Australian Aborigine, the Minoan snake goddess, Angitia, the serpent goddess and mother of witches in ancient Italy, Ningishida, the serpent goddess of Sumer, Set and Mehen, the serpent gods of Egypt, Yarmungandr, the Midgard serpent, had a multitude of scaled, slithering companions from a myriad of godly pantheons scattered across the globe. The mythic accounts of giant serpents have been validated by the skeletal remains of the allegedly extinct Titanoboa, a serpent so large it could swallow an adult cow whole. The mythic accounts of red-haired giants are validated by the discovered remains found across the world and across America. The mythic account of the Twilight of the Gods, the Ragnarok of the Aesir and the Vanir, is virtually identical to that of the Vedic Aryans' 18-day war in the Mahabharata. The 8,000-year-old Asian Armageddon tale, featuring a hammer-wielding hero, Bhima, who is an exact match to our more recognizable Thor, a god of thunder, by any other name. Both tales take place, if we consider the accuracy of their accounts, roughly 8,000 years ago. In 1987, astronomers Clark and Marjorie Hardman published their theory that the Serpent Mound is a solstice marker, and that the serpent's coils conform to certain celestial events that occur annually. As the coils are most similar in layout to the constellation Draco, the dragon, the center coil embracing what would be the star Alpha Draconis, the North Star of 4000 BC, again placing the construction of the Serpent Mound in the Archaic period, it becomes fairly easy to dismiss the Hardwick solstice marker claims. The Serpent Mound is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it will be maintained and preserved indefinitely. The Miamisburg Mound is maintained by a private golf course, and no further excavations are expected to be performed there, to our knowledge. They, the very same powers who hide giant skeletons and out-of-place archaeological objects, already know who is buried there, and they're not about to open that mound of Asgardian whoop-ass that will drop the hammer on their hysterical narrative of monkey's uncles, and the equally laughable biblical tale of the albino patriarch Noah and his multiracial United Colors of Benetton family. There is a 2,000-year-old, multi-tiered investment in the fragile lies upon which our current Western society has been built. The Judeo-Christian supremacist myth of the admittedly jealous deity Yahweh and his chosen people and the enemies he assigned them, and that of the Darwinian monkey tale, where primates clambered down from their tree homes to scurry across the African veldt, where they avoided every predator's tooth and claw, and they magically turned every rock and twig into every tool, music instrument, cell phone, computer, and spacefaring probe and vessel. It's all a cosmic joke on modern man who is so haughty and so confident in his Bronze Age comic book fantasy, who at the same time is wholly unprepared for the Conan-esque reality that his ancestors actually survived. The fictional tales crafted by Conan creator Robert E. Howard and those spun by J.R.R. Tolkien strike a familiar chord in the human psyche, just as the four-color print comic book tales forged by Jack the King Kirby and Stan the Man Lee recounting the adventures of Thor in his Asgardian cameras hit as familiar a note with those who patiently wait the next monthly installment of their hammer-swinging hero. The many print and film tales of sword and sorcery, and those of the gods and the heroes who used both to conquer the world that we enjoy, are not escapist fiction, nor are they adolescent power fantasies. They are ancient memories of a forgotten epoch, where the monsters of your darkest nightmares were defeated and destroyed by the mighty men of ancient times. Mighty men like the blue-skinned Krishna, Olympus's favorite son Heracles, and the mightiest warrior of all, the thunder god Thor. There are a billion people who acknowledge the life of the serpent slayer Krishna, and how he, in another spiritual aspect as Vishnu, learned the yogic practice from another wizened snake, yoking mind and body as a spiritual weapon. There are millions who still seek the favor of Zeus's mortal scion, the slayer of serpents, since he was but a babe. And thanks to the master storytellers, Kirby and Lee, an entire world regales in the new adventures of the Norse god of storms, Thor. The academics and the intellect-crushing machine institutions of higher brainwashing will mock and scoff our CSI breakdown of the myths, the history, the observable evidence that anyone can see for themselves with but a visit to the Serpent Mound in Peebles or the Great Mound in Miamisburg, Ohio. It's yours to accept or to ignore. As things stand now, we can no more prove that Thor, the god of thunder, the son of the earth, lays buried in an ancient tomb in western Ohio than can the academics prove who built either the Serpent or Miamisburg Mound, whether their guesses include the Adena, Hopewell, or Fort Ancient people. Mainstream science chooses to ignore the identical construction of the mound sites in Ohio and Illinois, and those in the New World to those found in Ireland and France and England. But we do not have to follow in so ignorant a chosen path. We can choose to think for ourselves and examine all of the evidence and see with our own eyes what has been written and left behind by historians in ancient, olden, and more modern times that have been provided to us. We can choose to ignore the many tales accepted by millions of people for thousands of years, to instead believe the 19th century guesswork of a handful of scientists who never believed electricity could be harnessed to a useful end, who never believed flight was possible or that man would ever walk upon the moon. Having faith in the so-called scientific theories concocted by men who never thought to wash their hands before delivering children in candlelit hospital rooms is not only foolish, it is utter madness, especially when compared to the knowledge of the ancients told in legend and the so-called myth that has been proved to be more accurate at times than modern academic conjecture. Fans of old Marvel comics have learned many things from their costume heroes: Submariners, Super Soldiers, Incredible Hulks, Iron Men, Blue-Eyed Things, Children of the Atom, and the Mighty Thor. We also know when our spider sense is tingling, and the quest to find the plane of Vigrid, where Ragnarok waged, and Thor's tomb has had those superpowers buzzing like a beehive ever since. Whether you believe in the ancient gods and their Armageddon battle, or you believe in ancient Indian tribes who displayed an advanced mathematical aptitude on a par with modern MIT scientists despite having an IQ lower than 90, the Serpent Mound in Adams County and the Miamisburg Mound in Miamisburg are unmatched examples of American archaeology anybody can visit for themselves and experience that same amazing energy associated with both ancient sites. I highly recommend you visit, regardless of whatever your interest or your perspective. Oh, we're getting an instant message question from a Dr. Don B. from Midtown Manhattan. Dr. Don B. wants to know, what happened to Thor's hammer? Shouldn't it be at the center of the Astrobleem crater where it struck the Midgard serpent? Great question, Dr. Don B. You certainly know your Thor trivia, and you must be quite the fanboy. Truth be told, Don, when the Allfather perished in the jaws of the Fenris wolf, the enchantment preventing anyone but Thor to wield Mjolnir was no more, and in theory, anyone who came across it could have walked away with it. But Mjolnir was actually recovered by Thor's two sons, Magni and Modi, and its fate is currently unknown. Others say that Magni the Strong and Modi the Brave used the power contained in Mjolnir, along with the collected godly power and will of their uncles, who also survived the Viking apocalypse. Valai and Vidar, Honor and Hod, Vilai and Ve, and even Balder the Light returned from the grip of Hel to recast Asgard and the 9 worlds as their hearts remembered them, so that the one-eyed Odin would always be there to watch over the earth, and that there would always be a thunder god named Thor to fight the ever-present giants and to assist mankind in his darkest hour.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
You've been listening to Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine. Be part of the radio revolution by following our Twitter page @Bad Machine Radio and by visiting Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine on Facebook. Bad Machine is a one-man media production, the exclusive owner of all original content. Otherwise, no rights are reserved. 2016.